The government insists the high-frequency active auroral research program facility is just a harmless screwdriver designed to fix radio signals in the upper atmosphere, which is a fascinating analogy, considering most screwdrivers do not run on 5 diesel locomotive engines and boil the sky with 5 billion watts of power. 48 hours. That is the timeline. In the world of high-stakes gambling, 48 hours is a binge. In the world of medicine, it is a critical observation window. But in the world of modern geophysics, 48 hours has become something far more disturbing. It is the recurring window of time between a specific machine turning on in the Alaskan wilderness and the Earth screaming in agony somewhere else. HARP. Officially, this is just a misunderstood science camp. A wholesome little facility where bearded academics in parkas drink hot cocoa and shoot radio waves at the northern lights to see if they can make the sky tickle. Physicist Craig Heinzelman famously described the facility as the world's best screwdriver to poke at the atmosphere. And that is a fantastic analogy. Because when there is a need to fix a loose screw on a pair of reading glasses, people do not typically utilize 5 diesel locomotive engines and a phased array antenna capable of boiling the upper atmosphere with 5.1 gigawatts of effective radiated power. If you just blinked, stop. Look at that number again. 5.1 gigawatts. That is not a screwdriver. That is not a sensor. That is a hammer the size of a city. Calling HARP a research tool is like calling a tank a very assertive traffic safety vehicle. The most terrifying part of this story is not that the machine exists. It is that every time the people in charge tell the public it is sleeping, the seismographs beg to differ. But why would the military give away their favorite toy to a bunch of grad students? Stick around, because the paperwork for this transfer has a giant red flag, buried in the fine print. Let us start with the paperwork, because nothing says cover-up like a bureaucratic glitch. On August 11th, 2015, the Air Force officially transferred the operation to the University of Alaska Fairbanks. The narrative was heartwarming. The military was done with their toys, and out of the sheer goodness of hearts, they were handing the keys to the students. It was a touching moment of government transparency. Except for one small irritating detail. The Air Force transferred the operation, they transferred the equipment, but they kept the land. Legislative records show the land remains the property of the United States Air Force. Now call me cynical, but usually, when a house is sold because the owner is moving out, they do not insist on keeping the dirt underneath the foundation. That is only done if there is an intention to come back, or if there is a desire to make sure the new tenants do not dig too deep and find the remains. This facility is built on 33 acres in Gakona, Alaska, featuring 180 crossed dipole antennas. It is an industrial forest of metal designed to focus energy into a single, needle-thin point in the sky. So there is a paradox. There is a university science project sitting on military-occupied land, generating enough power to microwave a small country, all to study auroras. And for years, the experts claimed that radio waves could not possibly affect the ground. Here is where things get interesting. The facility's operating hours do not match the university's published research schedule. FOIA requests submitted by independent journalists revealed significant gaps, weeks where the equipment was supposedly dormant, yet the power consumption records show massive energy spikes. The official explanation? Equipment maintenance and calibration tests. Which is convenient, because those maintenance windows align almost perfectly with seismic events on the opposite side of the planet. Consider the construction timeline. HARP broke ground in 1993. The official budget was $300 million, but defense spending records show over $1.2 billion allocated to atmospheric research in Alaska during that same period. That is $900 million of unaccounted funding. Where did it go? The antennas we can see are impressive, but what if they are just the tip of the iceberg? What if there is an entire underground network of amplifiers, resonators, and focusing arrays that the public tours never see? Former construction workers have come forward, anonymously of course, describing massive concrete bunkers buried beneath the permafrost. They talk about tunnels extending miles from the main facility, about rooms filled with equipment that looked nothing like scientific instruments. One worker described a chamber the size of an aircraft hangar filled with what appeared to be massive capacitor banks. When he asked his supervisor what they were for, he was told to finish his concrete work and forget what he saw. The security protocols are another red flag. For a university research station, HARP maintains security measures that rival classified military installations. Motion sensors, infrared cameras, and armed security personnel patrol a facility that is supposedly open to scientific collaboration. Graduate students report being confined to specific areas during their research visits. They are escorted at all times. They are never allowed to see the full technical specifications of the transmitter array. For a transparent research project, there seems to be an awful lot of classified information. Then, January 12, 2010 happened. 48 hours before Haiti snapped, Alaska was humming. Coincidence? Or was it the first live fire test? A magnitude 7.0 earthquake, A catastrophe. The official explanation was immediate and clinically precise. Seismologists blamed a rupture of unmapped faults. They said the Earth had been locked for 250 years and was a ticking time bomb that just happened to go off on a Tuesday afternoon. But the president of Venezuela did not buy the textbook. He publicly accused the United States of using a tectonic weapon. The media response was predictable. They did not just debunk him, they treated him like he had started wearing a tinfoil hat to press conferences. The headlines rolled their eyes, and the scientific community rushed out to beat the public over the head with math. They love to talk about energy levels. They claim a big earthquake releases energy equivalent to millions of tons of high explosives. They point at the Alaskan facility and say it only produces a tiny fraction of that, like a single spark plug trying to start a jet engine. See, the scientist said, dusting off hands. The math does not work. The machine is too weak. It is like trying to knock down a bank vault by throwing a pebble at it. But here is the catch. The assumption is that the weapon has to provide all the energy. It is forgotten that the pebble does not need to break the wall. The pebble only needs to hit the keypad. If there is a desire to destroy a building, a wrecking ball can be used, which requires massive energy. Or the one structural support beam that is already cracking can be found, the one that has been under strain for centuries, and it can be tapped with a very small, very precise hammer. If you think a radio wave can't move a mountain, wait until you hear how they turned the entire sky into a giant electrical wire to aim that signal. The fault in Haiti was already loaded. It did not need a wrecking ball, it needed a key. And in the world of resonance, size is not the requirement, pitch is. An opera singer breaks a wine glass not because she is shouting louder than a jet engine, but because she hits the note that the glass cannot handle. Let us talk about the science of resonance for a moment, because this is where the official narrative completely falls apart. Every geological structure has a natural frequency, a specific vibration at which it becomes unstable. This is not conspiracy theory. This is basic physics. Engineers account for resonant frequencies when designing bridges and buildings. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapsed in 1940 because wind created a resonant frequency that the structure could not withstand. The bridge did not need hurricane-force winds. It just needed the right rhythm. Now apply that principle to fault lines. The Earth's crust is not solid. It is a collection of massive plates grinding against each other under tremendous pressure. These plates have stress points, areas where the pressure has been building for decades or centuries. And just like that wine glass, each stress point has a frequency at which it becomes critically unstable. Find that frequency, broadcast it with enough precision and duration, and you do not need earthquake-level energy. You just need the right note sustained long enough to trigger the release of energy that is already there. The military knows this. There are declassified documents from the 1960s showing that the Department of Defense was actively researching seismic triggering as a potential weapon system. Project SEAL in 1944 tested underwater explosions to create artificial tsunamis. Project Storm Fury in the 60s and 70s attempted to weaken hurricanes by cloud seeding. These were not theoretical exercises. These were field tests with real budgets and real results. If there is still a belief that radio waves are too thin to move the Earth, explain why the military spent billions of dollars developing low-frequency tech to X-ray the crust. They are not just looking, they are listening for the frequency of the lock. But how do you aim a signal that is 3,000 miles away? Let us dig deeper into the screwdriver defense. If HARP is just for looking at the sky, why did the original patent, number 4, 686, 605, describe a method for altering a region in the atmosphere? The patent holder explicitly stated that his technology could be used for disrupting communication and weather modification. The government's response was to quietly shelve those more aggressive claims while building the exact machine he described. It is like someone handing over a blueprint for a death ray and the recipient claiming it was only built to use as a very expensive reading lamp. Bernard Eastland, the physicist who filed that patent, was not some fringe theorist. He was a legitimate scientist working for Arco Power Technologies. His patent described using focused electromagnetic radiation to heat portions of the ionosphere, creating a plume of energized particles. He explicitly stated this technology could be used to disrupt missile guidance systems, disable satellites, and modify weather patterns. After filing the patent, Eastland was removed from the project. He spent the rest of his life trying to warn people about what was being built in Alaska. He died in 2007, still insisting that HARP was capable of far more than anyone was willing to admit. But let us talk about what HARP actually does when it pokes the sky. It creates an ionospheric lens. By heating a specific patch of the sky, the air expands, creating a literal magnifying glass made of plasma. This lens can then reflect high-power radio waves back down to Earth with terrifying precision. It is the ultimate playground bully move, using a magnifying glass to burn ants, except the ants are coastal cities and the magnifying glass is the size of Rhode Island. The physics behind this is well understood. When radio waves hit the ionosphere, they can be reflected back to Earth at specific angles depending on the frequency and the density of the ionized layer. By heating a portion of the ionosphere, HAARP can create a lens effect, focusing energy that would normally scatter across thousands of miles into a beam narrow enough to target a specific geographical location. It is the difference between a flashlight and a laser pointer. Same light, completely different application. But a magnifying glass needs a clear sky. What if the military started making their own special clouds to make sure the signal never misses? This brings the discussion to the part of the story that usually leads to being banned from Thanksgiving dinner. It is time to talk about the trails. For decades, observers have noticed that the white lines behind airplanes are not behaving like they used to. A normal contrail is water vapor. It disappears in seconds. But these new trails? They stay. They spread. They expand until the blue sky looks like it has been covered in a dirty gym sock. For years, the official line was gaslighting. It is just water vapor. S-E-X-R-P-S, they said. But the trails did not go away. So, the authorities did what bureaucracies always do. They changed the dictionary. The World Meteorological Organization recently classified these persistent trails as new clouds. They even gave them a fancy Latin name, cirrus homogenitus. Let us pause and appreciate the sheer audacity of that. Deciding that plain exhaust is now a natural cloud is bold. That is like the government deciding that if a pizza is left on the floor long enough, it legally becomes a vegetable. They legitimize the pollution so that when someone points at the sky and says, "That looks unnatural," they can push up their glasses and say, "Actually, it is a cloud, and you clearly didn't pay attention in science class." But independent testing has found aluminum, barium, and sulfur in these clouds. Why would aluminum be wanted in the sky? If the goal is climate activism, the claim is to reflect sunlight. But for a military strategist, aluminum is known to be conductive. If the atmosphere is filled with metal dust, clouds are not just being made. A grid is being built. The sky is being turned into an extension cord that plugs the machine in Alaska directly into the fault line in Japan. The patents tell the story. There are over a dozen patents filed between 1975 and 2000 related to atmospheric aerosol dispersal. One patent specifically describes using aircraft to distribute aluminum oxide particles in the upper atmosphere to increase electrical conductivity. The stated purpose? To enhance radio communication. But the same patent notes that this conductive layer could be used to reflect and focus electromagnetic radiation with military applications. Weather modification patents go back even further. In 1946, General Electric was granted a patent for cloud seeding using silver iodide. By the 1960s, the military was using this technology in Operation Popeye over Vietnam, attempting to extend the monsoon season to disrupt enemy supply lines. This is documented history, not speculation. The military has been weaponizing weather for over half a century. This conductive grid acts as a massive planetary antenna. It allows the signals from Gakona to propagate with 90% efficiency. When the sky is filled with these metallic particles, it essentially mirrors the signal back toward the ground. This means the energy is trapped. It bounces between the clouds and the crust, creating a resonance chamber. Imagine a stadium. Chaotic clapping is just noise, but rhythmic clapping creates a resonance that can shake the stands. This is resonance amplification. When electromagnetic waves bounce between the Earth's surface and a conductive atmosphere, each cycle adds energy, turning a weak signal into a powerful physical force. This isn't just about heating the air, it's about vibrating the Earth itself. Nikola Tesla pioneered this concept, claiming he could split the planet using well-timed vibrations. He believed every object has a resonant frequency. Hit that frequency repeatedly, and the energy builds until the structure collapses. Tesla famously nearly brought down a New York building using a small mechanical oscillator tuned to the structure's natural frequency. Today, facilities like HAARP represent the billion-dollar realization of this theory. By finding the right rhythm rather than using raw brute force, these systems can theoretically trigger massive physical effects by vibrating the Earth's crust and atmosphere in perfect synchrony. Now scale that up. The Earth's crust has natural resonant frequencies in the extremely low frequency range, between 3 and 30 Hz. These are the exact frequencies that HAARP can generate by modulating its high-frequency carrier wave. By pulsing the ionosphere, HAARP creates a virtual antenna in the sky that broadcasts ELF waves. These waves penetrate deep into the Earth, and if they match the resonant frequency of a geological structure, they can trigger movement. But here is where the theory gets terrifying. Recent data shows that parts of the ocean floor are warming at rates that climate models cannot explain. Some researchers suggest that waves from ionospheric heaters are being channeled through the Earth's core, heating the magma and the seabed. If the ocean is boiling from below and the air is being baked from above, the result is a perfect, artificial storm. It's not just weather modification, it's global temperature management from a basement in Alaska. Oceanographers have recorded temperature anomalies in the Pacific that defy conventional explanation. Deep ocean vents are suddenly more active. Thermal plumes are appearing in areas with no volcanic activity. The official explanation blames shifting ocean currents and natural variability. But the timing is suspicious. These thermal anomalies appear in clusters, always within days of reported HARP activity, and they cluster along known tectonic boundaries. If electromagnetic energy can heat the ionosphere, why couldn't it heat the ocean floor? Water is an excellent conductor of electromagnetic radiation, especially at low frequencies. A sufficiently powerful ELF signal could penetrate thousands of meters of ocean and interact with the conductive minerals in the seabed. The heating might be minimal, just a few degrees over a large area, but in a system already under tectonic stress, even small temperature changes can have massive effects. Heated rock expands. Expanded rock increases pressure. Increased pressure triggers earthquakes. But what if the target isn't the ground? What if it's you? Furthermore, the technology allows for something called psychotronic warfare. By pulsing the sky at frequencies that match human brainwaves, it is theoretically possible to influence the mood of entire populations. If a 1,000-mile-wide radio transmitter is aimed at a city and it is pulsing at the frequency of anxiety, is that city going to be peaceful? Think that sounds like science fiction? Wait until you see the military's own 1996 report, where they literally promised to own the weather by 2025. Guess what year it is? The human brain operates on electrical signals. Different mental states correspond to different brainwave frequencies. Delta waves during deep sleep, theta during meditation, alpha during relaxation, beta during active thinking. If you can broadcast these frequencies across a population, you can theoretically entrain their brain activity. This is not fringe science. Binaural beats and brainwave entrainment are commercially available technologies used for meditation and focus enhancement. But scale it up. What if instead of headphones, the delivery system is the sky itself? The ionosphere becomes a speaker broadcasting specific frequencies across entire regions. People would not even know they are being affected. They would just feel inexplicably anxious, or tired, or agitated. Protests could be suppressed not with tear gas but with theta waves inducing drowsiness. Enemy populations could be destabilized not with bombs, but with beta waves creating mass anxiety. Declassified documents from the Soviet Union reveal they were researching exactly this during the Cold War. Their LIDA machine was designed to induce specific mental states using pulsed electromagnetic fields. American prisoners of war reported feeling inexplicably exhausted and depressed when exposed to certain radio frequencies during interrogations. If the Soviets had this technology in the 1970s, what has been developed in the decades since? This secrecy bleeds down to the ground level. Researchers at the facility wear buttons that say, "No photos, please." Why? If the aurora is being studied, take the photo. It is beautiful. Cameras are only banned when there is a worry someone might see something they are not supposed to. The truth is, the official story relies on the public being distracted. If a hurricane hits, it is climate change. If an earthquake hits, it is bad luck. By blaming everything on carbon dioxide, a blanket immunity is created for any other anomalies. If there is a machine that can steer the jet stream and a massive flood is caused, there is no need for a cover-up. The news anchors can simply blame your SUV. It is the perfect crime. The weapon is invisible and the scapegoat is global. Let us look at the receipts. In 1996, a military report titled "Weather as a Force Multiplier: Owning the Weather in 2025" was published. It outlined the use of nanotechnology to create smart clouds. It discussed the ability to suppress or intensify storms. Notice the date, 2025. The world is currently standing at the deadline of their own prophecy. They did not say they might do it, they said they will do it. The report explicitly mentions that environmental modification provides the war fighter with options that go beyond the capability of any existing weapon. But the screwdriver fans will claim that report is just brainstorming. Right, because the military is famously known for spending millions on research and then just forgetting about it for 30 years. If they can choose where rain falls, they can choose whose crops fail. And this isn't some new, untested theory. This is a weapon with decades of combat history. The Russians did it first. In the 70s, they built a machine called Pamir-1. It wasn't a research tool. It was a mobile generator designed to inject massive electrical pulses into the Earth. They wanted to see if they could release tectonic stress on command. Translation: they were building the world's first remote control earthquake. Then came the woodpecker. A Soviet radar so powerful it emitted a sharp, repetitive tapping sound on radio bands. It was linked to massive droughts in the American Midwest. We didn't send a protest note. We built HARP to win the arms race. We didn't just catch up, we turned the entire planet into a target. Today, HARP looks for ticking time bombs. These are regions of the crust under so much pressure they are one vibration away from a tragic end. It's a literal pressure cooker under your feet. And by using low-frequency waves, HARP can find exactly where those panic buttons are located. If there is a sniper scope that tells exactly where the enemy's armor is weakest, can it really be trusted that it is only used to look? Can you honestly believe that a military organization would find the world's most vulnerable pressure points and then just walk away? That is not how empires work. We're down to the final countdown: blue lights, boiling oceans, and the 48-hour signature. The evidence is screaming, but are you listening? Furthermore, consider the financial implications. This is the part that usually gets ignored because people are too busy looking at the clouds. If a country can predict where a disaster will hit because they are the ones hitting the switch, they can profit on the markets 48 hours in advance. They can bet against an economy, pull the trigger, and watch the insurance payouts roll in. This is not just geophysics. It is a hedge fund with a giant antenna. Imagine knowing exactly when a tsunami will wipe out a semiconductor factory. You don't just win the war, you buy the competition for pennies on the dollar while they are still digging out the remains. It is the ultimate insider trading, and the insider is the person holding the screwdriver. The economic warfare potential is staggering. In 2011, the Fukushima disaster devastated Japan's economy and crippled their nuclear industry. In the months leading up to the earthquake, there were massive short positions taken against Japanese utilities and construction companies. Someone knew, someone profited. The official investigations focused on the earthquake and tsunami as natural disasters, but the financial forensics tell a different story. Disaster capitalism is not a new concept. Wars have always created fortunes for those positioned to profit from reconstruction. But what if you could create the disaster on demand? A flood here, a drought there, an earthquake targeting a specific industrial zone. The economic leverage is unprecedented. You do not need to invade a country if you can bankrupt them with a hurricane. You do not need to negotiate trade deals if you can destroy their harvest with a drought. Follow the money. Every major seismic event in the past 15 years has been followed by massive reconstruction contracts awarded to American corporations. Haiti, Nepal, Japan, Indonesia, billions in aid money flowing to contractors with connections to defense and intelligence agencies. The pattern is too consistent to be coincidence. Create the crisis, provide the solution, pocket the profit. The 48-hour signal is not a warning. It is a countdown. HARP remains a target for allegations regarding the earthquake in Turkey. People saw the flashes. They felt the rhythm. Let us look at the blue light phenomenon. Witnesses reported blue flashes in the sky seconds before the ground moved. Scientists call these earthquake lights and blame them on rocks rubbing together, which is a lovely theory, except that those same blue flashes are the exact signature of a high-energy plasma discharge in the sky. It is like seeing a muzzle flash and the government claiming it was just a very bright firefly. Earthquake lights have been documented for centuries, but their frequency and intensity have dramatically increased in recent decades. Traditional explanation involves piezoelectric effects, pressure on quartz-bearing rocks generating electrical charges. But the lights in Turkey were different. They covered vast areas of the sky. They pulsed in rhythmic patterns. They appeared minutes before the shaking started, not during or after. Plasma physics offers a more plausible explanation. When high-energy electromagnetic radiation interacts with the upper atmosphere, it ionizes particles creating visible light. The color depends on the gases being ionized. Blue and purple indicate nitrogen, red indicates oxygen. The flashes seen before major earthquakes match exactly the spectrum you would expect from ionospheric heating. They are not coming from the ground. They are coming from above. Multiple independent observers recorded these lights with cameras and smartphones. The footage shows coordinated flashes across hundreds of square kilometers. That is not rock friction. That is atmospheric discharge on a massive scale. And the timing, always in that 48-hour window after reported HARP activity, is damning. The final payoff. We have the motive, the weapon, and the 48-hour fingerprint. But there's one last detail the Air Force forgot to hide. The atmosphere is being worked. It is being heated, pushed, and prodded. The world is a fishbowl, and someone is tapping on the glass with a hammer. The official story is that humans are small and the Earth is big, and everyone is at the mercy of nature. The reality might be that nature has been drafted into the military. They tell us the facility is closed. They tell us it's just for science. But the land still belongs to the Air Force. The smart dust is still being sprayed, and the seismographs are still ticking down the 48-hour window. We have entered the era of the quiet war. A war fought with frequencies, nanoparticles, and homogeneous clouds. It is a war where the front line is your backyard and the general is a computer program in Alaska. If this investigation disturbed your reality, share it. Let us make people uncomfortable together. Because the only thing scarier than a weapon that controls the weather is a public that refuses to look up. If looking at the math made you uncomfortable, this is the right place. Click subscribe and help force the algorithm to pay attention. Drop a comment below if the sky seems strange, and share this video before the powers that be decide it is just ground clutter and bury it. See you in the next file, assuming the weather holds.